What's required to get it sorted, as you say, is for Putin to realize he has nothing left to gain.
Mm.
Right now, Putin's mindset is he wants to attack. He wants to take more territory. He wants to take over the government in Kyiv. He wants to eliminate Ukraine as a national identity, as a language, as a people, and so forth. So Putin has to realize that that vision is never going to occur.
Shipman in the Sunday Times this week revealed what the Foreign Secretary David Cameron said to Donald Trump to win his support for more weapons to go to Ukraine. In effect, David Cameron argued that weapons were needed to keep Ukraine in the fight until Trump could do a deal and bring peace. It seemed to make a difference, with Trump then giving the green light for Republican congressmen to support the aid package. Now, we asked the Defence Secretary Grant Shapps on the programme yesterday twice if David Cameron had held out the prospect of a deal to Donald Trump. He didn't really answer that, perhaps understandably, but he did say there was no pressure on Ukraine to offer up land for peace with Russia.
But there is just no sense at all in which Britain would try to persuade, strong arm or otherwise Ukraine into accepting giving up some of their territory.
Let's speak now to Kurt Volker, Donald Trump's former special representative on Ukraine and a former US ambassador to NATO. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Obviously, we're going to ask you to kind of go back into the mind of the man that you used to work for and ask you whether you think that this is likely. This is very hypothetical. But do you think that what's being sketched out here could have happened? That David Cameron said to Donald Trump, let the stuff go through Congress. Let's get the weapons to Ukraine. If you win, you can then do a deal and bring peace and get all the plaudits. Do you think that's likely?
I don't think that's quite the way that it came out. I think everyone, think back a month ago, 2 months ago, everyone was very concerned that the Congress would not pass this additional $61 billion of aid to Ukraine. And they were not passing it because they were afraid that former President Trump would oppose it, or would oppose it if we hadn't already done something about the US southern border first. And so everyone was hesitating. And what was important, and this is actually what happened, is President Trump gave political cover to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, when he went ahead and brought it to a vote, and it passed with a substantial bipartisan majority, but more Democrats than Republicans. And that could have triggered a challenge to his speakership, but it didn't. And that's because Trump gave him the political cover. So what Lord Cameron was doing when he was in Florida meeting with former President Trump was making the argument that it's in Trump's own interest to get this military assistance approved. Because Trump has said, if he's president, he's going to end the war in a day.
Yeah.
Well, how do you do that if Ukraine is already collapsing?
Okay.
So you've got to shore them up.
Do you think not in a day, but do you think that he could, with a fresh set of eyes, whether people listening approve of Donald Trump's way of doing things or not, could actually bring peace, however that might actually be achieved? That might mean that Ukraine has to give something, who knows? But do you think he could actually get this sorted?
Well, I think what's required to get it sorted, as you say, is for Putin to realize he has nothing left to gain. Right now, Putin's mindset is he wants to attack. He wants to take more territory. He wants to take over the government in Kyiv. He wants to eliminate Ukraine as a national identity, as a language, as a people, and so forth. So Putin has to realize that that vision is never going to occur. That's going to require more strength, more arms, more pushback against Russian forces to get to that point. Eventually, there always will be an end. There will be an end to the war. There will be peace again someday. But the question is, what will the terms of that be? Right now, the terms would be Putin's terms, that he will only accept getting everything that he wants. That's why we have to get the arms to Ukraine, support them, help them win the fighting. Then you can get to a point where you can talk about what does that peace look like.
How will Donald Trump, do you think, if he does get to the White House, how will he deal with a man, a leader who has that kind of mentality that I want everything and I won't settle for anything less?
Well, I think he would recognize that mentality, and I think that he would, and I think that he would want to show strength himself. He recognizes Putin is a strong man. Putin, is going to push for what he can take, and I think Trump is going to have to push back on that. And I think he would use a lot more economic tools than we have been using to date. I think he would be boosting US oil and gas exports. He'd be trying to work with Saudi Arabia. He would be trying to drive down global energy prices. He would want to close the loopholes on Russian energy exports rather than keep them open as we have now. And I think he would also continue the arms flow to Ukraine to make sure that the signal to Putin is it's over. You can't do anymore.
What about Ukraine? You touched a little bit on what might have to happen there, what they might have to agree to. What is your best bet? Not bet. What is your best feeling about what the border between Ukraine and Russia might look like in the future?
Well, as the defense secretary said on your show yesterday, it's really up to the Ukrainians to decide that. No one outside is going to be able to say, do this, do that. Ukrainians have to decide. My experience working with Ukrainians is that the most important thing to them is Crimea. Crimea is the area from which Russia attacks the rest of Ukraine. They send rockets from there, they send missiles from there, they launch airplanes and drones from there. So that is critical. It's also critical for shipping. Ukraine's economic lifeline is to the Black Sea, and shipping will always be under threat if the Russians control Crimea. So that's the number one thing for them. Connected to Crimea is the area just north of it, Zaporizhia, Kherson provinces. Those are also critically important because of the connectivity with Crimea. The east, that's different. It is largely destroyed already. Russia has been occupying parts of the Donbass for 10 years now, and it's a wasteland compared to the way that it was. So I think taking that territory back might be physically harder, and I think it might also be something that is less important to the Ukrainians. But to be clear, they have a legal right, they have a claim, and they have the desire to go back to their original national 1991 borders, which Russia has recognized for more of Ukraine's independence than it hasn't recognized them. And so we have to not just dismiss the idea that Ukraine should have its borders back.
Okay, Kurt Volker, very interesting. Thank you very much for your time. It's Kurt Volker, Donald Trump's former special representative on Ukraine and a former US ambassador to NATO.
Putin is ramping up yet another offensive against Ukraine in Kharkiv and across the east, sending wave after wave of Russian soldiers, Iranian drones, North Korean artillery, and tanks, missiles, and fighter jets built with machines and parts supplied by China. There's one more crucial step that we can take: making Russia pay for Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction. What Putin destroyed, Russia should and must pay to rebuild. It's what international law demands. It's what the Ukrainian people deserve. Our Congress has given us the power to seize Russian assets in the United States. We intend to use it. We're working with our G7 partners to see that Russia's immobilized sovereign assets are used to remedy the damage that Putin continues to cause. The G7 can unlock billions of dollars and send a powerful message to Putin that time is not on his side. Your recent mobilization was a difficult decision, but a necessary one. The defenders who have so courageously held the line for more than 2 years need help. They need rest. This will allow both, while providing your military with additional troops to fight off bigger invading forces. The mobilization will also allow you to harden your defenses, to build more units, to take the fight to Russian aggressors. We're going to help you hold off Russia's attacks, make it harder for them to strike you, and keep the Black Sea open so you can keep growing your economy and keep helping to feed the world. We know that time is of the essence. That's why, just 1 minute after Congress approved our massive aid package, President Biden sent ammunition, armored vehicles, missiles, and air defenses to Ukraine. Ukraine is much more than a recipient of advice and assistance. Your warriors are confronting the greatest threat to transatlantic security since the end of the Cold War, and have as much experience as any on Earth in fighting the wars to come. You have a lot to teach the alliance, and NATO will be more secure with your military by our side. The work we're doing together moves Ukraine closer to membership in the European Union and NATO. With each passing month, Ukraine signs more bilateral security agreements, ramps up its defense industrial base, churns out more advanced weapons, strengthens its economy, consolidates its democracy. As the war goes on, Russia is going back in time. Ukraine is moving forward.